All right, we have a good crowd here already. That's wonderful. Thank you very much, my friends. Okay, so, greetings from Tokyo. It's nice to see you. My name is Daisuke, and I hope you are doing very well today. So, what I'd like to do, I'm sorry, I'm just sorry about the lateness of my appearance here. It's just been getting ready. As you know, I do these live streams a little bit early where I am. So now it's what? It's 6 a.m. So I got up a little bit early on my day off. So please accept my apologies here. So just trying to get ready, and from there we can get started. So, oops, excuse me while I take a sip of water. And what I'd like to do is I would like to let's see. Well, let's see. Let's just give it one more minute, and then we'll just start in earnest. So let me just one more thing, and then just gather myself. Just give me one more minute while I just do a final setup. I'm still a little bit groggy, actually. So, and to be perfectly frank, I don't feel. I feel a little bit not under the weather necessarily, but I just, it's one of those days, sometimes you wake up and you feel a little bit like maybe your body is a little bit heavier or something like that, but, or, it's just maybe your head is not quite there yet, so please forgive me if I'm not quite there yet, but it'll take me just a moment or two. So let me just, I had so many things that I wanted to say, but suddenly they're gone. So just give me a chance to refresh, and we'll go from there. So just give me 1 second. I apologize for this. So, okay, great. I think I'm there. All right. So let's start in about 10 seconds then. So again, thank you very much for your patience, and let's go from there. All right, all right, my friends. Go. All right, so let's begin in earnest. So thank you very much for sticking with me here. And this is Daisuke, and I hope you are doing very well today. This is the Film Club live stream, and this is the Film Club live stream session or discussion where we'll be talking about this film, Paris, Texas. And Paris, Texas is from 1984, Wim Wenders, Sam Shepard, and Harry Dean Stanton, Natasha Kinski, etc. And we'll get into the cast and the aspects of the crew, hopefully during the live stream discussion today. There's a lot to talk about with respect to that, as some of you may already know. So, and the live chat is open, and I see people are already talking in the live chat. So greetings, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever the case may be where you are in the world. So it's nice to see you. So with that, my friends, I'd like to welcome you. And for those of you for whom this is the first time, welcome. So in the live chat, you can talk about this film, you can talk about any other film, within reason, of course. If you're talking about this film, of course, this is going to be spoiler heavy, so there's going to be no tiptoeing around details about the plot, including the ending. So if you are coming here and you haven't seen the film, I strongly urge you to you can leave the chat right now, because we are going to be talking about the ending of the film as an example, so I wouldn't want to spoil it for you. Don't worry, because the video will become uploaded onto YouTube as soon as I'm finished. So if you are if you haven't seen the film, please, you don't have to watch the live stream now. You can stop, you can turn off the video and then come back at a later time when you've seen the film. Because the last thing I want to do is to spoil it for you. But please understand that I will be talking about specific aspects of the plot, including the ending. So there you go. Also, I will address as best as I can the comments and questions in the live chat. So please feel free to ask any questions of me you want. Please note, however, a couple things. One, I am not necessarily the biggest expert in this film. I don't know all the details. I claim to have any direct connection with this film. I haven't worked on this film. I'm not a member of the crew or anything like that. So, and I'm not a historian that has covered this film. And so that means that I'm not able to answer every single question that might be posed with respect to this film. I don't claim to know everything about it, but I can try my very best based on the information that I've been able to assemble to the best of my ability, primarily through the supplemental materials that are available on this great Criterion collection release, for example. So I might therefore be calling your attention to certain aspects of these supplements during the course of this Livestream Film Club. So that is something that I think is, it might be a good place to go with respect to answering your further questions should they pop up. And I will try to allude to that or make reference to the specific supplements where necessary. Also, I have to ask your understanding because I will not be able to answer any questions here that are not related to this film. So I know I get this occasionally. Some people ask me questions during the live stream, during the live chat, for instance. And I'm very grateful for receiving those questions. But if they are off-topic questions, then I ask for your understanding in that I won't address those. I think it's important to focus this time on the film Paris, Texas. And so I want to focus on questions pertaining to, or comments pertaining to Paris, Texas. And so if you ask a question and I skipped over it, one of the possibilities is that I think it's probably off topic and probably best left for another video or another comment section. So it's not to suggest that you can't ask questions of me anytime. You can do so, but for purposes of today and this live stream, I'd like to focus my energies on Paris, Texas with you. And with that in mind, my friends, for those of you who are here and watching, but not necessarily leaving comments, that's perfectly fine, of course. You can use this in any way that you feel comfortable to you and your film viewing and your YouTube video watching and engagement. But of course, if you want to leave a question or a comment about this film, I will certainly try my best to address comments in the live chat occasionally throughout the course of this discussion. So with that in mind, my friends, let us get into this film, Paris, Texas, and go from there. And oh boy, what a great film this is. This is a film that has been mentioned to me on many occasions. I think since going way back when I first started this YouTube video thing, and I think it for good cause, because a lot of people, I think, hold this film so highly. They have it close in their hearts, and for many people it's considered one of their favorites, if not their most favorite film. And so I will do my best to try to do this film justice, but please forgive me in advance if I'm unable to. The story is, of course, very I think it's kind of deceptively simple. It's essentially about a man who is coming from somewhere. We don't quite know who he is or where he's coming from at first, but slowly the film reveals certain details about this unknown man who suddenly appears in this basically the middle of the desert or the rugged desert landscape of the United States, in particular the southern part of the United States, or Texas. And he just emerges from nowhere, and like a legend almost, or like an unknown man, or like a man with no name, someone without an identity at first, but with certain peculiarities with his appearance. He has this, dirtied up suit, red cap, and he's carrying an empty, one of those large water bottles. And he's just walking through the landscape as we see certain images that seem to recall a kind of American West, or that kind of iconography. And we hear certain things on the soundtrack which also seem to suggest a certain kind of melancholy, or a dealing with the past, and in particular an American past. And then, which hopefully I'll try to get into momentarily. But from there, of course, the story slowly evolves and grows almost organically from that into one about a man trying to confront his past and trying to deal with certain mistakes that he has made, and trying to make connections or reconnections with the people in his past and in his circle of connections. And this man is Travis, and he is played by the great Harry Dean Stanton. And from there, we see him trying to repair something about his life that prior to the film's start, we understand later on that something quite tumultuous happened, to the point where he essentially seems to have abandoned his past life and sort of went on the run, as it were. And he was gone for 4 years, or about 4 years, and then he's come back, and he seems to be, he doesn't speak at first. He seems almost in a state of kind of almost like maybe a symbolically catatonic state, as it were. But slowly he emerges, and he tries to rebuild some kind of assemblage of what once was, including connecting with his brother Walt and his wife Anne, and also very fundamentally, of course, connecting with his son Hunter, and then from there trying to discover or discover the whereabouts of Jane. And that therein lies the essential crux, I think, of the story, which is a man trying to essentially come back and try to repair, or try to figure out, or try to reconnect with respect to some aspect of his life in the past, and rebuild, or make things right, or something along those lines, in a film that is at once, I think, a film that is in a lovely way soaked to the brim with images of a kind of a rural, rugged American South, or just an Americanness, if you will, and certain aspects of that kind of American road culture. When I say road culture, I mean there's a lot of scenes here that deal with characters driving from one place to another in search of something. And in particular, Walt and Travis on the one hand, especially in the first half of the picture, and then Travis and Hunter is, in the second half of the picture. But the idea of characters on the road and what they encounter and the images and the spaces that they inhabit while they go through this expanse of America, and the motels they stop by and the places they stop to eat and the places they turn to when they take a break, or the colors that illuminate their faces, or the huge giant dinosaurs in the background, or the highways and byways that intersect over bridges and elevated streets and roads on the one hand, and the high-rise skyscrapers of Houston and the like on the other, and the brush of an expanse of desert with an abandoned truck, or the creation of billboards, or newly constructed houses that overlook the Los Angeles skyline, or with sky that is blue and orange and green and filled with neon of cars, and the windshield of a car that has that filter at the top there. So all these little details fill the screen as we have these characters on their voyages, as they were on their journeys from one place to another in search of something, whatever it might be. And for each character, I think there's a specific kind of search that's going on within the context of this, for lack of a better phrase, Americana, the slice of American culture that in many ways I think recalls an American past that is not dissimilar to the kind of American, the myth and the kind of legend that we, at least in my mind, can conjure up when we see American Western films, for instance. There's also a kind of mythology that's built up in the sense that this is a kind of a road movie. There's also an interesting aspect to that as well, because we are dealing with a film that is set in this rugged landscape of the United States, but there's there are a lot of people on the crew and cast and crew who are not American. They are European, and so and in particular Wim Wenders, of course. So we have the aspect of the United States or America that's seen through the lens of this filmmaker who is not from the United States. And so what does that add to the whole overall experience of this film? And what I tried to allude to in very broad terms just now, this idea of trying to depict a kind of American culture or an Americanness within the landscape primarily of Texas, of course. But what is this notion here of focusing in on certain aspects of this? And how is that affected by the eye and the sensibilities of certain of the creatives behind the camera, like Wim Wenders? And I think there is a really nice interplay with that creates something that it creates a certain focus on certain details or certain things that might have otherwise been overlooked, as it were, and thus further augments these aspects of, for lack of a better phrase, Americanness that just feed into this overall sense that this is at once like a huge, grand recalling of a myth, of a mythology, of a grand legend of America that perhaps even now, when we speak of it, is no longer there. On the one hand, but then on the other hand, there is a laser-eyed focus, a keen-eyed focus, just something quite truly focused in on the intimate nature of these characters and the turmoil that they go through and what it is that they're struggling with. And when we get to the final, well, it occurs even early on, I think, but when we hit those huge emotional beats in this film, I think we realize that we are dealing with an intimate story of characters who have gone through something that is almost unspeakably difficult and tumultuous, and they're trying to sift through that and deal with that the best that they can, such that by the end, hopefully, they'll reach some kind of resolution. And so, there's something that's very interesting going on, which I will try to talk about to the best of my ability later on, which is a kind of connection between what I see as being this attempt to depict the legend of the American mythology, if you will, of the West and the landscape and the importance of land and the way in which the character of America seems to be through these sorts of visual landscape iconography on the one hand. And then on the other hand, that seems to be tied in a very interesting way with the movements of these characters and their intimate portrayals and how they interact with that space and how they almost seem to be becoming that thing of America that we're speaking of. And in particular, this is certainly true with the depiction of Harry Dean Stanton and his rugged looks. I mean, his face is almost, it's got that beautiful, almost chiseled look. It's almost like it's been through so much, and it's almost like he is a man who's coming out of an American Western on the one hand, but especially when you see close-ups of his face, it's almost like his face has almost been chiseled out of rock of Mount Rushmore or something like that. That is the intensity of his visage, which then goes further, of course, in the fact that his performance is incredibly deep and moving, and we have to look very closely to see not only the curl of a smile as it appears, but also the appearance of a tear that is barely reflected through the haze and fog of lights as they pass on a highway in America, as depicted in this film, Paris, Texas. And so hopefully we'll get into specific details about that, and I'd love to hear your comments along the way as we get into that. But that's just my very broad general statement about this film. But before I get into detail, let me now address some of your comments here. So let's see. Okay, so Jared, hello. Hello, nice to see you. Carl Ranson Reviews, hello. It's nice to see you. Rocky Big is here. Sexy Monkey, hello. Isaac, hello. It's nice to see you, my friend. The Horsebox, first time in a film club finally. Great, it's nice to see you. Alec Hansen says, all-time favorite film, Natasha Kinski is a dream. Yes, I will try to address my thoughts about her incredible performance in a moment. I still, just as a passing comment to that, I still, to this day, every time I see this film, I cannot get over just how. I mean, I'm not from Texas, so perhaps people who are from Texas probably have a sharper ear than I would ever hope to have when it comes to that kind of certain way of speaking and a kind of dialect that is associated with certain parts of that part of the country in the United States. But I think her speech patterns and the way she talks, it's just it's incredible, and it's also incredible because. And I mean, I'll get to this in a moment, but I guess I'm just getting ahead of myself. But you realize that we have other characters, other actors in this film. Aurore Clément, who plays Anne, that's the wife of Walt, and then we have also the doctor. At the very beginning in Trilingua, the doctor who's played by Bernard Vicky, who obviously has this very thick, European accent, German accent, and Aurore Clément, who plays Anne, the character acknowledges that she's from France, and so those two characters do not make any attempt in the performances of the actors, anyway, to try to hide their respective European accents, right? Which adds a really great dimension, on the one hand, to that particular part of the film. And in particular, I really like Aurore Clément's Anne here. She has a certain warmth to her character, and she also provides certain key information to Travis with respect to the bank account that Jane has been sending money to for Hunter. On the 5th of every month, right? So from a bank in Houston, which provides the key impetus, if you will, for the latter half of the film, and the two characters, the father and son, going off to Houston to try to find the mother at the bank, right? So Anne, the Aurore Clément character, of course, provides certain key information that leads to further the development of the film. The narrative development of the film. She also provides a kind of tension, if you will, because she is also a mother figure to Hunter. And there are instances in the film, right, where she expresses a kind of maybe regret or maybe a concern for the well-being of Hunter, because she has been looking after him almost as a mother. Or not almost, but as a mother. And Walt, too. Walt has been looking after him as a father during the 4 years when both Travis and Jane have been out of this young boy's life. But there is also that scene, of course, between Anne and Walt, if you recall, where Anne is they're not quite arguing, but they are having a somewhat heated discussion where she is saying, why are you trying to push Hunter towards Travis? And Walt says, well, because Travis is his real father, right? Walt has a really sincere earnestness about him, which is so lovely in his character, Dean Stockwell character, and I'll get to that that great performance in a moment, I hope. But Anne has that struggle where I think she is trying to express that. On the one hand, she does appreciate Travis being here, but on the other hand, she seems to be fearful of the fact that if Hunter is gone, what effect will that have on her relationship with Walt as well? And that she does express that, and there are certain I don't know if you know, but the deleted scenes that is included in the supplements of the Criterion Collection release here does include an alternative take on the characters of Anne and Walt in the latter half of the film. After Travis and Hunter have gone off to Houston in search of Jane, they've basically run away without telling Walt and Anne. They only called, or Hunter called them after the fact one night from a payphone. And after they received the call, Walt and Anne received the call, they don't quite know what to do. And there's an alternate version where you actually see the two characters, Walt and Anne, actually get into their car and attempt to go off after Travis and Hunter. So that version though ultimately was not included in the final film. So in the final film, we just see Anne and Walt at home, sort of visibly worried and unsure about what will happen in the future. And I think that's the last that we see of those two characters before the film then shifts its focus on Travis and Hunter and their search for Jane, and then the whole thing with the Keyhole Club and the one-way mirror and all that, and the reunion between mother and son on the one hand, and the ultimate the final act, if you will, kind of almost an act of sacrifice, perhaps, of the father, and those final moments. But we don't see Anne and Walt again. So I'm sorry, I've sort of gone off on this, but Anne provides such a huge source of information for the narrative, of tension, of thematic richness and development, of this idea of motherhood, and those feelings of motherhood. Where do they come from? This idea of how does this idea of Hunter, how has that affected the relationship between Walt and Anne? I mean, very noticeably, of course, we have to remark that Walt and Anne don't seem to have, at least there's no indication in the film that they have any children of their own at this particular point in their lives. So the existence of Hunter has affected their relationship in a very significant way. So therefore, the absence of Hunter will undoubtedly affect the relationship too, and we're not quite sure what that means by the film's end, and still I'm not quite sure what it means and what it means for those two characters. So her character does add a really important richness to the thematic exploration of this, and family and the components thereof. But the fact that she's played also by Aurore Clément, and which is the point that I was trying to get to at the very outset here, is so interesting, because she obviously has a very she has a warm presence. She has an accent, a French accent, which she doesn't try to turn into an American accent, and her character is acknowledged as being from France. There is a nice tie-in, of course, between Paris, Texas, and Paris, France, and there is a kind of a joke that Travis talks about, I think twice in the film, with respect to his father, and how his father would always, he'd love how his father would always use the joke of introducing his wife to people. And, this is my wife, from Paris, and then he'd stop and wait. Paris, Texas, instead of saying Paris, France. He'd wait until people got the idea that she was from Paris, France, but in fact she, is from Paris, Texas. And Paris, Texas is, of course, a very key place. It's almost a mythological place in and of itself in the context of this film, of course, because we see pictures of it, we hear it spoken about, but we never actually go there, which is such a fascinating choice. But my point about Anne is that she is from France. There's this connection of Paris, Texas, and Paris, France, which is also a running joke. So it seems like the fact that she is from France, and the actress that plays her is also from France, is something that is not hidden for the purposes of this film, which is really set in America, and it has a lot of slices of Americana figured into the narrative and the visual style of the film. So the fact that she is here is a really interesting choice. I know the background, the fact that this is a kind of a co-production, and as revealed by Wim Wenders in the commentary, and I think certain practical requirements called for certain actors from certain parts of the world to be hired. And I understand, generally speaking, that there were certain requirements to be had as far as hiring certain actors from certain countries. But I do think it adds a really a lovely, nuanced richness to the film. It does create this sort of tapestry of America as being, this idea of a collection of what's the phrase? It's a melting pot of people from many parts of the world who have come here. This idea of coming to America, also the immigrant experience, if you will, and therefore the existence of America and the different people from different parts of the world and languages that are spoken and all this, that I think it recalls that in a very lovely way. And it also, in terms of, let me just then get to Jane. But what's really interesting is the fact that Jane, who's played by Natasha Kinski, who is, who I think in real life doesn't have this kind of American accent when she speaks. She, as a character, essentially is, donning this accent in a very effective way, and it's just trying to, I think, suggest that she is from this area. So that's a really interesting artistic choice, I mean, it could have been, we could have had Natasha Kinski play essentially herself with her own natural way of speaking, but that wasn't the choice. And so I find that there's a really nice kind of contrast here, and it's also a different angle or a different take, if you will, on a kind of an American experience, at least portrayed on film, And so this film seems to be, at least through those performances, Natasha Kinski on the one hand and Aurora Clement on the other hand, and Bernard Vicky, the doctor at the early part of the film, as another example of this. On the one hand, we see almost different aspects of portraying Americanness, if you will. Two sides of the same coin almost, in Anne and Jane, these two characters, which I think is so cool. I think it has a multi-layered focus, and just by comparing two characters, gosh, it's great. So yes, so sorry about that, but just going off of that comment, is I do think Natasha Kinski is just wonderful, and her character does represent so much in terms of the aspects as to why I think this film is really great and really, really deep. So anyway, thank you very much. Let's see. Okay. Woke up early enough. Okay, so just going back to the chat here. Wolfgratz, hello. Eric, hello. It's nice to see you. And Isaac says, I've never seen you without glasses before. Oh, it is surreal. Okay, sorry about, yes. So I have, I have many glasses, actually. I wear these because these are my homage to George Romero. And so whenever I do these discussions about film, I always like to put these on because they are an homage to the kinds of glasses that George Romero used to wear. So I call these my George Romeros. Actually, I have a ton of, not ton, but I have a number of eyeglasses, actually, that I wear. I don't wear these to work or anything like that. These are a little bit maybe not so suitable for work or my office, but I wear them here and I wear them occasionally, although they are a little bit big. So for instance, if I'm just reading or if I'm walking the dog or something, I'll probably take them off and I'll put on my other pair of glasses. But one of these days maybe I'll show you my glasses collection if you're interested. But for what it's worth, it's not even a collection. It's only just maybe a few pairs. But but this is my glass. Although one day perhaps I do want to get a pair that is similar to the types of glasses that Wim Wenders wears. I think Wim Wenders has such a cool look in terms of his own eyewear, at least as far as I can tell in interviews that I've seen with him. Wow, the glasses that he wears are so cool. One day, perhaps, maybe when I graduate from these, maybe I'll go to a Wim Wenders homage pair of glasses if I can. So that'll certainly change the look. Let's see. Paula, hello, it's nice to see you. And Jared says, this is one of the first films I saw on the Criterion channel. Great film. So yes, this film is on the Criterion channel according to what Jared says. So you don't necessarily have to go to the Blu-ray. So that's great. Cinema Dave Media. Hello, my friend. And Cinema Dave Media, of course, if you haven't checked out Cinema Dave Media and his channel, you must. It's really great. Let's see. Wolfgratz says hi, Jared. Sorry, Wolfgratz. Paul Emery, hello. Salim, hello, Salim. Welcome. It's nice to see you, and have fun with that Kurosawa course. Please let me know how that goes. Solitary Ronin Films, our dear friend, is here. SJS Films, our dear friend, is here. Two great channels, my friend. Solitary Ronin Films, SJS Films. You've got to check those channels out if you haven't. Great stuff. It's lovely to see you guys. And let's see, just going. Donald Blakesley, hello. It's nice to see you from Pennsylvania. Oh gosh, I haven't been to Pennsylvania in so long. What a great place. It's nice to see you, my friend. I hope you're well. Let's see. Melinda, our dear friend Melinda, thank you so much. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Yes, it's nothing. I don't have any kind of illness. It's just a little bit of grogginess, but it's nothing that I can complain about. So I'm doing very well, and this film club is really I'm feeling rejuvenated by this experience as always. So thank you. JR62, hello. Homesteading Bear, hello. It's nice to see you. I simply adore Paris, Texas. This will be exciting to watch. I hope you enjoy. It's nice to meet you, Homesteading Bear. I think this is the first time that I'm speaking to you. If I'm mistaken, if I am mistaken, I apologize. But if this is the first time, welcome. It's nice to talk with you. Let's see, David Pryor, hello. Let's see, Amy Sullivan, hello. It's nice to see you. I hope you're well, my friend. Let's see. And my thoughts are with Elvis. Yes, I hope things are well. And let's see. Gosh. Sexy Monkey says, Robbie Mueller's cinematography is gorgeous. Yes, the cinematography in this film is really gorgeous. There are moments that are just stunning. And when we hear the commentary track given by Wim Wenders as included on the Criterion release of this, I think what's amazing is that there are many shots that basically rely on natural light, or they rely on lighting that wasn't necessarily altered after the fact in post. According to the commentary, for instance, there are a couple shots that are really just even shots of driving through the windshield and just road as the car is driving. I mean, those, according to Wim Wenders, were just random. And there's also a shot of Walt at the beginning when he's driving in his rent-a-car, and he stopped, I think, stopped off a maybe on a restaurant or gas station, I'm not quite sure which, and you see him with the map or something on the hood of his car, and you see the sky in the background, and it's orange, I think, and Wim Wenders, according to the commentary, says that's the actual sky, and just to see everything in the foreground and everything in the background is composed this way is really quite stunning, and not to mention the scenes with light and shadow in the Keyhole Club and the one-way mirror scenes and between Natasha Kinski and Harry Dean Stanton, and the way in which reflections are then given way to actual glimpses through the looking glass, albeit very faint. And the probably the I think the most, well, for me, there are so many poetic moments here that are due in large part to the cinematography of Robbie Mueller, but the probably one of the most poetic images in this film, I don't know if you recall, I'm sure you do, what am I saying? Of course you'll recall, is that scene towards the end when the two characters, Jane and Travis, finally, well, Jane realizes that Travis is there, and she looks, and then Travis and says, can you, if you turn off the light out there, can you, is that easier for you to see? And so she turns out the light, and when she turns out the light, she sort of kneels down, tries to look through the mirror, and then she kneels down and the light's off, and then it's amazing because then here on this side of the mirror, then the light is shifted in a way that we see Natasha Kinski's head and shoulders on the other side of the screen, but then as the light shifts and then Harry Dean Stanton moves in, we see his face, almost his reflection superimposed on the body outline of Natasha Kinski. Oh, I get chills just thinking about that, and wow, what a way in which to capture a moment. That is the moment where it's almost like that those two characters at once they are uniting, but it's at the same time it's not a real union because it's just a union of shadow and reflection. It's not a reunion or it's not a real connection, as it were. They're not actually touching, but so it's at once a reunion after many years, but it's also almost ghostly or ephemeral. And it is too, because ultimately we realize what happens to at least these two characters, and they will never, at least by the movie's end, we understand that they will not be together. Wow! So they come together and then they are not together at the same time. Wow! What an image, Robbie Mueller. Wow! What an image. So yes, I am totally with you, Sexy Monkey, in your praise of the cinematography. Totally with you. JR62 says, could not place the year this film was supposed to take place. So yes, so I think it's modern day in terms of when it was made. I understand it was made in 83. It was being shot in 83. I think the actual creative process began much earlier, perhaps, but it was actually being shot in 83, I think. And while it does have a certain, there are aspects that tie the film to its time and place, that is the early 80s, right? That the kind of cars that are being driven, the kind of dress and decor that's being worn by the characters. Heck, there's Hunter's bed sheets and pillow covers, Return of the Jedi pillow covers. I don't know if you noticed that, but I certainly did, because I don't know if they are the exact ones, but I do have these faint memories of when I was a little boy having Return of the Jedi pillowcases, and so and that ties it in, I think, to the particular time and place. Hopefully I'll have time to talk about my own personal feelings when it comes to Hunter. He has this kind of lovely precociousness as a child, and he's really into NASA and space, but he has these the Return of the Jedi pillow covers and stuff. I have a memory too of having those when I was a kid, and so there's something really lovely about watching this film for me and seeing certain ways in which this family deals. Like I still remember, I'm old enough. I'm 40 now. I'm old enough to still remember there was a time that my family, when I was really young, still watched, Super 8 family home movies. And I remember that was a big thing because instead of watching things now on my iPhone, and it can be almost like a solitary experience for me watching these on my iPhone because I take something, but I don't necessarily sit down with my family and project it onto the wall or something like that. Well, when I was very, very young, I still have memories of my father showing Super 8. Maybe it was on a wall or something. I forget exactly how it was shown, but I do remember it was a big deal because we had the family all together in one room and watching these Super 8 films. Very short, but that was a great time. And so therefore, I understand completely the experience. If Walt showing the Super 8 footage of a happy time with everyone, and I really love that moment for many reasons, but one of which is the fact that it's this idea of watching things together as a family, things, and that's the kind of thing that I don't think is I don't think it's possible anymore, and so it's something that reminds me of an aspect of the past that perhaps is no longer there. It's almost like phones now too. Whenever I see a phone on screen and the pay phones and the way pay phones are very important here, that couldn't have happened. That can't happen now with cell phones and all that, right? But so this film is happening in a time that is closely tied to the early '80s. But also seeing the film now, and seeing aspects of the film that no longer exist, at least in a very immediate practical sense. Super 8 and phones and all that. It gives me this sense that even the film that is tied to the early '80s in its decor and setting still seems to be achieving this charming sense of timelessness, and that really helps, I think, for my eyes anyway, to age the film. In other words, I think this film is aging so well and so gracefully, and it hasn't lost any of its punch. And even with the things that seem to be linked to the '80s, I think there is still a lovely way in which those themselves are becoming tools of engendering senses of warm nostalgia in the minds of the viewers who are watching the film today in 2019. But also, I would also add before I move on that I think that even though the film does seem to be tied to the early '80s, there are visual clues or motifs, if you will, that make the film even further timeless, if you will. And this is the stuff that I was trying to speak to before about the American iconography and the grand images that recall a kind of American past or American West, or mythic American West. And even when we get, the focus on certain ways in which neon light is shaped into lettering for motel signs, or certain stores that, or certain bars that Travis and Hunter go to. The decor, or a way in which there's this one building in the middle of a desert that seems to be out from a different age, or seems to be isolated from the rest of civilization almost, or things that almost came from that are almost like photographs of like a time period that's almost like the American Depression time period, if you will. There are a lot of great pictures and photographs that are taken by Wim Wenders that are included in the booklet of this Criterion release, and also included as supplements. There's a photo gallery here that have pictures, and and also the look of the film, and there are certain shots of the film. And I think the Wim Wenders in his commentary makes reference to photographer, for instance, Walker Evans, and I think that reference is very key. I'm not a history, I'm not an expert when it comes to the history of photography and photographers, but I do appreciate the fact that the reference to Walker Evans is trying to make the suggestion that there's an interest and focus on this kind of imagery that seems to be tied to an early 20th century and beyond, perhaps, past American Depression era look that is still existing in the way in which certain buildings stand, in which certain signs seem to be focused upon or created, and the certain fonts that are used, and the shoemake store, or El Rancho Motel, or Marathon, and the way in which these signs seem to be hanging together as the wind and the dust pass through. So there is a further sense of timelessness even beyond its 1980s decor and setting, I would argue. And this is a real attempt, I think, by Wim Wenders and the filmmakers Wim Wenders and Robbie Mueller and Sam Shepard and others to try to capture maybe an American past that represents maybe a past that was lost, or a past that has a certain tinge of melancholy, maybe a past that almost is forgotten, a past that is in stark contrast to the skyscrapers of Houston, that cut right through the skyline, the clouds, or the sounds of airplanes in the airport that is near the house in Los Angeles of Walt and Anne. So it seems like the film is trying to capture a kind of feeling of an American past, or an American melancholy that is no longer there, or that maybe is forgotten, or is something that is of a different time and place. And I think that is linked almost to a T to what Travis, the character, the Harry Dean Stanton character, seems to represent. As I mentioned at the very outset, he seems to come from nowhere. He is walking through the desert landscape, and but he has these odd trappings, if you will, of a kind of, on the one hand, being of a certain time and place that is modern, because he's got a suit and he has a tie, I think, and he's got this cap, and he has those lovely, I don't think we can find, I've never been able to see them here in Japan, for instance, but I know what they are, those huge water bottles, that is empty at the time, or almost empty at the time that we see Travis at the beginning of the film. So on the one hand, he is part of the American landscape or ruggedness of this desert and Terlingua and all that, which then is recalling the really, really timelessness and the past, if you will. But then he's got trappings of a modern day living. Albeit it's very dirtied up and dusty and all that, sure. And he's got a lengthy beard and he's all disheveled, of course. But there's that wonderful visual contrast and that visual tension existing from the very outset. He doesn't have, let's say, more traditional kinds of dress or garb, right? He is dressed almost out of place in this world of the past that he is walking through. But he is also undoubtedly of that world, and he emerges from that world into the present, into civilization. And I think Walt represents that return, and in fact encourages that return, and he buys him new clothes, and he actually makes reference to that, and his dialogue is suggestive of the fact that, oh, he's come back, welcome back to civilization. You know, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but what was my point? My point, I suppose, is that even Travis and his emergence and what he seems to represent, and undoubtedly he represents this loss and past that is almost forgotten and sad and filled with melancholy. Even he has certain contradictions there that I think are really effective, and then add to the overall tapestry of this film, which I was trying to say before, is filled with a lot of these seemingly interesting or seeming contradictions in terms of an American film with certain European sensibilities, the way in which certain actors portray their characters. They try to either express a certain type of Americanness, or sometimes they try to go the opposite direction. And I think Travis too adds to that, or is an example of that kind of wonderful, rich contradiction. He is a man of the past, and he's walking through the past, and yet he's got these wonderful, dirtied up clothes and this wonderful, just almost out of place sense about him from the get-go. And still, at the same time, he is undoubtedly someone who is emerged from nowhere, from the brush, from the very earth and the very core, if you will, of this American past as depicted in this film. So, yes, what was it? So that's JR62's comment there. So sorry about the ramble there, but there's so much to say about this. And then SJS Films, I think, catches on to that. I love the way the environment changes from the huge open desert to a more urban environment as Travis slowly regains his memories. Yes, I agree with you, SJS Films, about that. Although I would submit for your consideration that it's not, and I don't think you mean this, but it's not a clean progression, I would say, from this sort of rugged landscape to the urban. And the reason why I say it's not necessarily clean, it's because there are, it goes back and forth, I would argue. Or at least there is a bit more sway as the film progresses. I don't think it's just a clean A to B kind of progression necessarily. And I don't think you meant that. So I think maybe you and I are in agreement about this anyway. So, but like, what's an example? I think the example that I would give is, right, when Walt goes to Terlingua to pick up Travis, and they're traveling by car. They're going back to the airport, and then Travis has a thing with the airplane. He doesn't want to go on the airplane, and they got off the airplane. Wow, can you imagine? That would never happen today, right? I mean, the airplane just stops and just lets the two of them off, and they just walk on the runway, and you've got this huge giant airplane just about to take off, and they're just allowed to walk. That would never happen today, right? And that's a major airport. Talk about something that you never see ever again. Then they have to get the exact same car that they rented, or that Walt rented, and then they are on the road. And as they're on the road, granted, they do pass certain urban type of landscapes, but there is a key moment where Walt sleeps, and Travis says that he'll drive, and then they're in the car at night, and Walt is in the passenger seat, and he's asking, "So are you ready to tell me what happened?" And Travis, who's driving now, says, "No, not yet." And then the next thing we know is that the film cuts to, I think, the next day, and the car it's in the desert, and Walt is seen waking up, and he gets out of the car and he sees that they're off the highway. He doesn't know where they are, and he sees Travis sitting in the distance on an abandoned truck. And so we get back, and that's a scene where there's actually a deleted scene that's included, which is a really lovely scene where Travis then speaks about certain memories that he had of his mother, of their mother. So I guess my point is that I think the film does this lovely back and forth, if you will. There's traveling through urban landscapes and then back to a kind of maybe a desert or maybe a more rural landscape. I mean, I think also the fact that we go at the very end as well, when they're going and visiting where Jane is, and then we see, right, there's a contrast of the two sequences that are not so far away from each other. Right after they see Jane for the first time, they drive off to this. It's obviously a different place. I think the town is called, according to Wim Wenders, it's called Westhoff, Texas. And that's an interesting story too, if you have a chance to listen to the commentary. Why did Wim Wenders decide he wants to shoot the scene in the bar after the first meeting with Jane in this town called Westhoff, Texas? And I think the answer is that Wim Wenders says that his grandfather was named Westhoff, and so when he saw Westhoff on the map, he said he had to go there and visit it. And I think that's where they shot, if I'm not mistaken, that's where they shot that scene with the bar, and then the Hunter and Travis then find that it's not even a motel room; it's just like a couch or something, and that's, I think, the assumption is they sleep there for the night. And then Travis has that continuation. It's the second time he's mentioned the joke about his father and Paris, Texas, but that it has a continuation of that, and it's almost a very chilling continuation, right? Because the joke, as he expressed it first to Walt earlier in the film, was that his father was so pleased that he made everyone think that his wife was from Paris, France, where in fact she was trying to refer to Paris, Texas. But then the joke, as Travis mentions it to Hunter in this place, which I think is in Westhoff, Texas, is that in the couch as they're at night, is that he recalls the joke, but then he says, but his father told it so many times that one day he actually believed it was true. He actually believed it, and this is undoubtedly, right, a parallel, almost a metaphor of Travis and what we discover to be what he did, which was what he did, which was he basically was so intensely in love with Jane that his intense feelings went towards the destruction of the relationship, and which is revealed in the next sequence when he goes back to Jane in the Keyhole Hotel for the second time. What was I saying? So yes, going back to SJ's comment about going from almost a rural to urban, I think it does a nice juggling act of going back and forth to key moments. And so I don't necessarily think it's a nice through line, but it does have maybe not a back and forth, maybe a zigzag, if you will. But yes, the urban landscape shots, I think, are really impressive. I referred to it earlier. There's a shot at the end where we see Hunter listening to the tape recording, and he's there in the hotel room, I think, and we see the the outside shot of the skyscraper going up, cutting through the clouds. We also see the shot, right, where Hunter and Travis are together and they're sitting down and they're eating and they're under the highway bypasses and all that, and the cross section of all these roads, and we hear the traffic. And that's where they make their decision to go off in search of Jane. And I love that it's almost, they are making a decision. They are themselves emotionally at a crossroads, and they make their decision literally, right, at crossroads. That's so great. And so that's a great urban shot, if ever there was one as well. Yeah, yeah. Really great stuff. Anyway, sorry about that. So let's just keep going here, and we'll go from there. Let's see. Amy says, one of the best. I certainly agree. Heirloom Providence, hello. One of the great Robbie Mueller's best shot films. Yes. Cinema Dave Media says, Paris, Texas was one of my first Criterion collection purchases years ago. Salim says, I remember watching this movie for the first time and not having a big impact at the time. I found myself gravitating towards the movie long after I saw it until I was obsessed with it. Wow. Wow. Let's see, Solitaire Ronin films, one of the best views of America from an outsider, great locations. You know, before I go on Solitaire Ronin films, that reminds me, the booklet in this, that's included here, has a great quote. Gosh, there are no page numbers in this booklet, unfortunately, but it's in the section which is an excerpt from the preface of the 1987 book Written in the West. And these are basically just, I guess, comments by vendors, I'm assuming. And there's one comment where it says here, it's so great, it says, oh, no, I'm sorry, not that one. I'm sorry, I mistook my reference here. I don't mean that part. I mean the quote that is, I think, by Sam Shepard here. Excuse me here while I try to find it. Yes. It's at the very end of the section in the booklet called A Long Ride, which is Sam Shepard, or an interview transcript of Sam Shepard from April 15th, 1984. And at the very end of this, it says this: Wim has this fascination with America that I have in a way. But I feel that because of his Europeanness, there are certain qualities about American culture that ordinarily certain American directors would totally overlook. They wouldn't find a neon sign of a stagecoach going like this that fascinating. But because of his European background, I guess, this thing suddenly strikes him as having an obsessive quality about it. Yes, I think that is something that Solitaire Ronin films is getting at, and which I was trying to express also earlier, which is this is like an American film shot by a European filmmaker that is trying to be about something to do with America, but there are undoubtedly shots that perhaps are almost hyper-realized aspects of Americana. And what Sam Shepard seems to be suggesting here, that there are certain details perhaps that Wim Wenders would be focusing on that maybe other American directors might not necessarily have focused on. They might have focused on other things, of course, but maybe not the things that Wim Wenders and Robbie Mueller and etc. had chosen to focus on. And I completely understand that approach. It's that thing of maybe I don't necessarily appreciate the things that are so commonplace to me and to my own experience because I see them every day. But someone who is visiting, who's not necessarily from here, and is looking at the environment in a completely different way and focuses on things that I would never have otherwise have focused on. Where I think something might be happening similar to that might be happening here in this film as well, from a certain point of view anyway. We have different things in which Wim Wenders seems to be focusing on. And, I think perhaps some people might see that as being almost an overly stylized look to this. For example, take the idea of not only the idea of focusing on the way in which signs are used and all this, but maybe an example also might be like something that's maybe seemingly over stylized or hyper realized, might be, at least from an aesthetic point of view, the shot where Travis is, they're parked outside of the Keyhole Club, or the club where Jane works, after they've tailed her car from the bank. And Travis walks into the building, and we see the building. It's like the back parking lot, right? And we see the building. The back wall is that has that. It's like, I don't know, like a mural or almost graffiti, I think, of the huge depiction of it's the Statue of Liberty. And I think, like, on the one hand, there is something. In other words, I can see someone saying that, oh, that's probably going a little bit too far in terms of really just hammering the message home and then some. This idea of the American dream maybe thwarted or corrupted, if you will, if we think that Jane's plight is indeed a plight. And what she is doing for a living is in fact something that is quote unquote not good or something. Or the idea, even more fundamentally perhaps, of the loss of family, the loss of innocence, based on the fact that Travis and Jane, while they loved each other, also had a very, very troubled relationship, as we will soon find out. And it all comes to a head in this building with the mural on the back, with the almost, it's not a realistic impression of the Statue of Liberty. It's a very stylized version of what the Statue of Liberty looks like. I think it is the Statue of Liberty. So that might be seen on the one hand by some people to be maybe overly stylized and sort of hitting the nail too closely on the head, perhaps. But I think at the same time, that is an example of something where we focus in on a particular element. And it's almost like that, and the signs, and the way in which the light passes through maybe a dirtied or dusty window in an empty bar or something like that. Those sorts of details add, or the way in which a train cuts through the landscape or the horizon, as Walt and Travis are eating at night on a highway stop somewhere or something like that. I mean, those things give us many layers of the existence or the environment in which these characters are inhabiting. And the environment is America and all facets of it, right? Old and new, beautiful and grotesque, stylized and realistic, and it becomes a nice hodgepodge and swirl and mix, and right. I mean, isn't that so ultimately fitting, right? Because it goes also very nicely to something that I was trying to allude to before, which is what this film, I think, is at least, maybe not, it's either trying to capture or it's certainly encapsulating, which is this idea of the melting pot. So, all right, so yes, Solitary Ronin films. Let's see. Okay, just going through. Oh, Paula says here, very curious on everyone's thoughts on this film, as I must admit it's not a favorite of mine. I am likely the lone dissenter, as I know it's a much-loved film. Paula, that's perfectly fine, as I try to say on as many occasions as possible. I think there's nothing wrong with not liking a film that's well liked and that has a strong reputation, so I completely get it. let's see. I think please forgive me if I'm putting words into your mouth, and I don't mean to speak for you. If I'm mistaken in your impressions of what the film is, please forgive me, and please, of course, feel free to add any comments to the live chat. Perhaps you have, and I haven't just reached them yet, so I apologize for that. But I can see certain people not liking this film on the one hand because, right, it does feel like an incomplete film in a way. Okay, so what do I mean by this? We don't see, for instance, any depiction of the family strife. We don't see, in other words, we see everything. We see the tail end, the makeup, the attempt at redemption, if you will. We never see the act or the acts directly, which seem to be the cause of the destruction of the relationship. So we never see all this stuff with the marriage between Travis and Jane. We hear about it, of course, and the thing with the cowbell tied to her leg, and the thing about how their marriage seemingly almost paradoxically, if you will, seemingly got worse after Hunter was born because, according to Travis and his story, and what he says at the end, it was the fact that she felt trapped. She was young. She was very young, but the fact that Hunter was born meant that she no longer felt free. And so she was trying to break free, and she was trying to run away at night, which is what Travis was reacting to. And then one day there was the fire, and they were no longer there, which is all very mysterious. And in fact, the way in which the story is told, I mean, right, there is so much ambiguity, even though I think Travis is trying to be as clear as possible. I mean, we don't get a sense of what actually caused the fire. Right, we don't know if it was accidental. I probably think it was accidental, but we don't, I mean, was it not accidental? I mean, if it wasn't accidental, who started it, right? So all these questions seem to arise, but we don't ever get those details. These seem to be quite crucial details, but we never get them directly. We just get the aftermath. And when the film opens, we meet Travis at the point where he has just come back from being away. So we catch up, or we meet these characters as they are trying to catch up with all the stuff that happened in the past. So in many ways, it's like we are into this film almost after all the dramatic stuff has already occurred, you know? So from a certain point of view. So on the one hand, it seems perhaps that this film might be seen as being a little bit of maybe an incomplete portrait, or maybe a one-sided portrait. I mean, for instance, we are getting all the kind of good stuff when it comes to the way in which the Travis character is being depicted. I mean, at the first he doesn't speak, but he seems almost has a kind of otherworldliness about the way in which he intuits things, or he just has a certain way about him that slowly emerges into speaking with Walt, and the thing about Paris, Texas, and the way in which he doesn't like to ride in the front seat, but he likes to ride in the back seat of the car and all that. So it's almost like Travis is almost like a child. And he is, at the start, he is like basically a child, and he's maybe born into the world of Paris, Texas, or Wim Wenders' Paris, Texas, as the film starts. And gradually we see, it's almost like the film is, in one way, him growing up. And gradually he seems to be growing up to the point where sometime in the film he says his first word. and then he starts to say longer sentences, and he then starts to be able to figure out how to communicate with others, in particular his son, and then he wants to then go out on his own. So he's dependent on Walt, but then he decides to go out on his own and tries to figure out something on his own. I mean, well, that's the trajectory of childhood, right? From early not adolescence, but being a baby through adolescence all the way to young manhood, right? So in many ways, this is like the growth of a young man from child to young adulthood. But we never see the stuff beforehand. So it does seem like, on one hand, an incomplete work from a certain point of view. On the other hand, though, I think that choice is of where we start the drama, where we start the film, which is almost abruptly within the drama. I think that choice is really good because it doesn't focus necessarily on the heated family drama of the moment, but it focuses on recollections and thinking back and regret and the melancholy that's associated with regret and the attempts to try to forge that. Also, I think the fact that we don't see any direct family life between or among Travis, Jane, and Hunter, and we only see it in that Super 8 footage moment. That means that this idea of family, at least in the context of those three characters, is something that is like a fantasy, and it's not in any way expressed in any kind of terms of reality, or at least reality as defined by the film, right? In other words, we never see it take place. We only hear about it, or we only see it in Super 8 footage. So it's almost like a hazy, foggy past or a fantasy of something that is, in real terms, something that has not only been not realized, but by the end, it's not attainable by the fact that Travis cannot stay with them. So, of course, the mother and son reunite. So that is a very key moment, don't get me wrong there. But in terms of that family unit of three, we never see the three of them together. And I think that that's on purpose, because that then helps to explain further the decision that Travis makes at the end. You know, he must redeem himself by bringing the two of them together, but there's no way, there's no possibility that he can be a part of that. So, and I think we understand, therefore, subliminally, not subliminally, that his choice is indeed the only choice that he could have made. Yeah, but I do understand why it might feel incomplete. And I'm not quite sure. I know that a lot of people that I've spoken with who maybe don't love this film as much have spoken to me about the fact that it does feel a little bit incomplete in that sense. But I would just very gently counter that with the suggestion that I've just made, which is perhaps the point of the film, at least by the creatives, is not necessarily the directness of the intense drama of the family, but rather the fact that it's not depicted means that the family unit is no longer attainable by Travis, along with other things, of course. So, let's see. Roman, hello. I just watched this film this morning, and wow, what a masterpiece. It is such a simple film, but it has such depressing themes of family. Yes, it does. And I tried to focus on that a little bit today. I certainly agree with you. And Jared continues, I felt it was rewarding to find out what happened with Travis, yet also sad. It was a sort of tragic reward, if that is a thing. Yeah, that's a really interesting way of putting it, tragic reward. Interesting. Wolfrat says, does Anne come across as kind? I'm not sure I buy into that. I think she does. I really think she does. Why? Because she gives Travis the information about Jane. Right. She says, she talks about how after Hunter came to live with them, that Jane first started to call. And then after Jane stopped calling, Jane asked Anne to set up a bank account, and then Jane started to give money to that bank account on the 5th of every month. And then Anne says, right, she never told this information to anyone, not even to Walt, but she tells it to Travis when they're alone on, overlooking the Los Angeles skyline at night, right? And so I think that's an act of real kindness and almost selflessness, right? Because she says at the very outset of that speech, right? She says that, some things sometimes, and again, I apologize for not having the precise line of dialogue, but she says sometimes it's, some things are better if they're forgotten, or something to that effect. But rather than basically sweep this under the rug, I mean, she could have gone on and not told them anything about Jane, but she did. And I'm not sure, perhaps she didn't know the consequences of that. I mean, perhaps she didn't anticipate the fact that Hunter would go along with Travis on the search for Jane. Perhaps she didn't anticipate the fact that Travis would go out in search of her as well. But it could have been very easy for her not to say anything at all. But she did. She made that conscious choice. And this is also key, too, because this scene comes right after that discussion between her and Walt, where she's saying, why are you pushing them together? And then Walt says, because they are father and son. And so I think that juxtaposition of those two scenes seems to me to suggest that she has been convinced, to a certain degree anyway, by Walt to quote unquote tell the truth, or at least tell what she knows. Because all the way up to then, she didn't tell them anything about Jane. She could have. She could have very easily told them at the Super 8 scene, but she didn't. She could have very easily gone to his room, Travis's room, and just told him very gently about what she did. But she, at least prior to that scene. But then she chose that moment to tell him. And so I think that that's an act of kindness. Whether that means that her character is kind, that might be a different question entirely, but that moment certainly comes across to me as being an act of kindness and generosity. Let's see. Dungeon Studio, hello. Nice to see you. Let's see. GR60, face it, Travis was an abuser and a kidnapper. The last part was rather dark, but that doesn't make it a bad film. I was engaged throughout. Yes, but you're absolutely right about describing Travis as an abuser and a kidnapper. Yes. I would actually, he is, he is a self-described abuser, right? With respect to his family and Jane, and so, and he hit the bottle, and he becomes very intense in his jealousy, and we're not sure if his jealousy is completely unfounded or not. We never get into those details, but that's not the point. I mean, the point is his reaction, and he seems to acknowledge the fact he completely blew it. He completely blew it with this relationship, and it was basically his own undoing. So JR, I agree with you in your take on Travis, and we kind of get this sense of maybe not emotional instability. As he's depicted in the film, I wouldn't call him a character that seems to exhibit signs of emotional instability. He does exhibit, of course, signs of being maybe showing a sense of naivete, perhaps almost childlike naivete. But he does start remembering things, and he never displays any outward showings of violence during the film. He never raises his voice in the film, at least as far as I'm aware. He always shows acts of kindness, washing the dishes, shining the shoes. when he's at Waltz and doing all that. And so yes, so essentially all this stuff about his dark past is essentially expressed to us via hearsay through his own words and his own mouth. I mean, is it hearsay if it's the actual person saying it? Perhaps not. But I think you know what I mean. It's told to us after the fact. But when we hear it, we can I mean, I can kind of see where that is coming from because of I don't know what it is. Perhaps it's the Harry Dean Stanton persona, if you will. I mean, Harry Dean Stanton acknowledges as much in his interview excerpt, which is included here, because he was known as right. It says on page 25 of the booklet. It says at the bottom. It says. This started with my this is Harry Dean Stanton speaking. This started with my personal relationship with Sam Shepard. I gravitated towards this material because I told Sam Shepard I played a lot of negative characters over the years, a lot of hostile killers, a lot of angry people because I was angry. So Harry Dean Stanton seems to have this, maybe innate is too strong a word, but he seems to have this part of him that maybe is due to the reputation that he has garnered by virtue of the roles that he's played in the past prior to this film and that sort of thing. But there is a certain edge to him and his performance that is so beautifully countered by his performance in this film, which is, I think, miraculous and lovely and touching and very moving. And it's capped off by so many great moments. The end shot of him, when we see him from behind, the close-up of his face from behind as he's driving with the lights and everything, and we see, right, you see this part of under his eye. It's wet with tears, I think, and you see his. And the Ry Cooder soundtrack kicks in. Oh gosh, I have to start speaking about the music. I'll speak about that in a moment. But yes, so it's like he brings so much to the table. Harry Dean Stanton does, but when he's at the table, he gives us something that transcends what it is he brought to the table, if you know what I mean. And so that is really just. So much, there's so much going on, and I think that further helps the decision, the artistic decision, which I think I was assuming and I was suggesting earlier, which was that the filmmakers made the conscious decision to start the film at a certain point in the drama, not showing the violent past, but showing the kind of growth and progression of the childlike Travis at the very start of the film as he grows up into a man. So it's almost like a second birth or a rebirth, if you will, of his character, all the way up to the ultimate choice that he makes, which is in many ways not only the ultimate act of redemption on the part of Travis, but it's a real point of maturity. It's such a mature moment that he makes, because it's suggestive of an act of sacrifice, and perhaps even self-sacrifice, because you don't know what happens to him at the end of this film. But yes, JR62, yes, he was an abuser and a kidnapper. So although was he a kidnapper? I'm not sure if he was a kidnapper. What he did with Hunter at the second half of the film, does that officially count as kidnapping? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But he was certainly an abuser. Anyway, great comment, by the way, my friend. Okay. Let's see. Amy Sullivan says, I believe Claire Denis worked on this film as well. Yes, and in fact, there is a great interview with Claire Denis on the Criterion disc. Well worth checking out. There's some really interesting anecdotes that she gives. Really great, really great. Let's see. Wolfgratz says, only if we think she tells Travis about... Okay, so Wolfgratz, you made this comment about Anne, which I've just But you say, okay, only if we think she tells Travis about Jane in an attempt to heal his relationship with Hunter and his wife. I'm not convinced that this is her motive at all. Yeah, I don't think that, I would go so far as to say that that's Anne's motive, but I would say that the fact that she reveals the information itself, I think, is an indication of a kind of act of kindness. I don't. I would agree with you. I'm not sure her motivation is to bring the family together because of the fact that she reacts the way she does when she receives the call from Hunter later on, saying that Hunter and Travis are on the road, right? So she certainly didn't have that in her mind when she revealed the information to Travis, but it was the act itself, I think. Jared says, I love the Western atmosphere to this film. It's not exactly a Western, yet it has that vibe about it. It's quite extraordinary. Yes, I agree with you. That it has that great Western feel. And this is a good chance for me to get into the music. You know, the Ry Cooder soundtrack music with that lovely guitar that is... what is it? Dark Was the Night, Blind Willie Johnson, that exploration of that theme. And so this is like really, it feels so rugged and of the soil, if you will. And it's so great. And I love how it kind of weaves in at the very beginning, especially, and it sort of slowly and very almost subconsciously, if you will, sort of fades out around the middle of the film, and then it just comes back again towards the end, almost triumphant, if you will. It's almost like Travis has come from the wilderness, or he's come from the earth, if you will, at the start of the film, and he enters into certain aspects of civilization. And then it's around this time that the music seems to be faded, or seems to be more subdued. But only it's at the end when he returns to the earth that the music seems to come back and swell. And I love that almost the synergy, if you will. And this is another aspect of and it feels like a Western kind of a vibe to it, and certainly helped by the great music. So. Yes, I love that. That's great. That is really great. Oh gosh, let's see. Just keep going here. There's a discussion about Point Blank, and Gray. Okay, Gray 1951. Hello. You said you have to leave, so maybe you're gone already. But if in case you're still here, I hope you're well. It's great to see you, my friend. Sorry about this. I am just skipping. I've just skipped so many, so many comments here. I'm so sorry. Oh gosh, sorry about this. I do this every time I do one of these film club live streams. I do this all the time. I push something and suddenly I lose track of where I am in the chat. I really apologize, and it takes me these extra minutes to try to relocate myself. I'm so sorry about this. Ah, gosh. Oh gosh, sorry. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Heirloom Providence, hello. You say, certainly the writing of Sam Shepard isn't to be overlooked. Nobody could critique the American male and the American myth like him. Yes. And speaking of the way in which the Sam Shepard, the story and the story is evolved here, I think we should mention the fact that the way in which the story seems to have developed, at least according to the many the elements that are included here, and also the commentary by vendors, is that the film began shooting with an incomplete script, right? So in other words, the script didn't go to the very end, and I think the filmmakers had in mind that they were starting the film not knowing exactly how the film would end, which is incredible to me. And they also shot the film, according to vendors, the film was shot in sequence. And so, which is really great because it really allowed for the natural progression of the exploration of the characters by the actors in the film. And it also has this really organic feeling to it. I don't know if you feel the same way, but it feels like it seems to be growing out of almost naturally from the settings that arise as the film is progressing from one sequence to another in chronological order. And then it reaches a point where Wim Wenders, at least in the commentary, acknowledges that the script ended and they didn't quite know where it was, and Sam Shepard actually had to go away on some other obligation, I think. And so Ellen Kit Carson and Wim Wenders had to, according to the commentary anyway, were maybe try to come up with these kernels of these ideas, which then developed into the latter half of the film in the search for Jane and the mirrors and all that. And I think those notes were then faxed. They had fax machines back then, according to Wim Wenders, to Sam Shepard, and then Sam Shepard tried to assemble a kind of script that would then be used as the core of the dialogue for the film, in the second half of the film. So there was Sam Shepard's contribution, of course. There's also Ellen Kit Carson's contribution, of course. There's also Wim Wenders' contribution, of course. So there's a moment, I think, at the middle of the film where Wim Wenders on the commentary says, "Oh, this is a scene that's written by me." So it's almost like his is the middle section that is in the middle of Sam Shepard's section, and also the Ellen Kit Carson, Sam Shepard section at the second half of the film. And I think the scene he's referring to, Wim Wenders, if I'm not mistaken, is the scene where one of the scenes between him and it's the scene, I think, between him and Anne. The middle of the film, I think it's the scene between him and Anne. So, and he acknowledges that he seems like the dialogue sounds like Wim Wenders' dialogue or something. And I think the implication, or what he's trying to say, is that it's not, he has a certain love of Sam Shepard's dialogue and what he writes, and so he seems to be very self-effacing in that comment, in that he's suggesting that his dialogue is not necessarily reaching the certain same heights as Sam Shepard's prose. But I think that's also exemplified the fact that, remember that great moment, it's a really random moment, but it's one of those things where Wim Wenders really loved the speech that was written, I think, by Shepard, which was the scene over the overpass, and Travis is walking along the bridge, and we hear the voice of this guy screaming, talking to the guy, there is no safety zone, there is no safety zone, or something like that. And it's this really vehemently given speech. It's this like almost nonsensical vitriol that's given by this random guy we never see again. But I think Wim Wenders, and he just loved that speech, and he's just trying to find a way to fit it in. And he loved the performance of the actor, and he also loved the words, and he's trying to find a way to fit it in, and he just found this way in the film. Just this guy randomly talking as Travis passes him. I mean, Travis gives him a gentle pat on the shoulder, I think, which is a lovely moment in and of itself as well. So it's also a way in which we see Travis's character play out. So. And so there we go. So yes, Sam Shepard and Ellen Kit Carson and Wim Wenders, yes, the creatives here, really wonderful. So you're absolutely right. Here we go. Just keep going. Stephen Cruz, hello. This is your first live stream, so welcome. It's nice to see you. I hope you're doing well. Let's see. So there's a discussion here. Yes. Great discussion here. Paula says, I did really like Natasha Kinski in this. Yes. Like, there's, I want to say this before I forget. There is something, when she is talking, during those, she has, she's in the film very infrequently, right? She's not in the film for very long, but when she's on screen, she is just dynamite, and just can't take. I can't take my eyes off her. Just there's something very magnetic about her. And I think part of it is that she has been up to, for the most part of the film, she has been this unknown factor. I mean, we've seen glimpses of her in the Super 8 footage. We saw a little glimpse of her at the very beginning with the picture that is part, I think, of Travis's possessions that is given to Walt at the beginning by the doctor in Trilingua. But we don't see her until the point where she's in this like bar, I think, in the club, and then John Lurie, the great John Lurie, suddenly comes and just blocks Travis's view and blocks our view as well. What a great kind of cameo by John Lurie, isn't that? And there's a great deleted scene, if you've seen it, where John Lurie is actually, we see him playing harmonica through the telephone. In the room that Travis was in for the first day when he saw it. And Travis left and the telephone was there, and then John Lurie is seen in the lead scene actually playing the harmonica through the phone to Natasha Kinsey's character Jane. So, but John Lurie blocks our view of Jane, which we were trying so desperately to search for all the way up to this point. And so I think that adds to the allure of her character. There's something incredibly special about her. But when we see her and her face, it's weird, right? Like there is a real directness and a real closeness that she is able to achieve. I'm not sure if it's real or if it's inauthentic on her part, if it's an act. But I remember when she says, is this your first time? That's the way it works. I know it's kind of weird for people here who come here for the first time. So that in itself is a way in which Jane is able to connect with this person on the other side of the glass whom she can't see, but she has a real way of connecting. Now, I'm not sure if it's an act on her part, but that kind of level of authenticity comes to the fore again when she realizes who the person is. And the close-up on her face when she hears the story of Travis and what happened, and there's a moment where she says, when he talks about the trailer, right, and they were living in the trailer, and then she whispers, the trailer. And that she's thinking about her own past and the fact that this is her own past. And that moment just develops into such a feeling of yearning, regret, love, and warmth that is incredible. There's a line also that she says when she realizes that Travis is there, and when she started to work here, and what was it? Travis asked, why did you abandon Hunter? How could you do that to Hunter? And she said, I had to. I couldn't go on like that. And but she started to work here, and she tried to support Hunter the best that she could. And it got so painful for her that she couldn't. It was hard for her to even imagine what he looked like, because that alone was just too painful for her, right? And then also about her relationship with Travis too. She was saying how when she was there, I heard your voice all the time. And she said that lovely line. What was it? Every man has your voice. Oh my gosh. Oh, that stings. That really, really stings, because it just shows that she has, or at least she had feelings for him, for Travis. I'm not sure if they're there anymore, but, right, every man has your voice. And that's such a nice tie-in too, because remember early on at the second encounter, she says, were you here? Have we met before? Were you here the other day? And he says, no, I wasn't here. And so, but he was there. So it's like that also explains how she could hear Travis's voice during these two encounters and not necessarily put two and two together at first, because maybe psychologically she was thinking that, oh, here is another customer that has the same voice or a similar sounding voice as Travis's voice. And so, oh man, it just makes everything fit so nicely. And it's just, oh man, that is such, poignant. Just thinking about it now, it's so beautiful. It stings. Oh man. And and then her encounter with Hunter at the end. I didn't even go into Hunter Carson's performance as Hunter. What a great performance he gives. And a great example is the scene at the end with him and Jane. She comes to the hotel room in the, was it the Hotel Meridian? What's the room number? That's the room number 1520, right? Don't forget the room is 1520. And she goes to the room, and she meets him after what it must be years. And she goes in slowly, right, from screen right, I think, and he's there. And as she goes, the camera pans, and then we see Hunter emerge from screen left. Right? And then they're face to face, essentially. And she's obviously much taller than he is, but she doesn't initiate anything, right? The person who initiates a kind of contact is Hunter. He kind of reaches out, tries to, reaches, and then that leads into that really beautiful embrace between the two of them. And then I love the bit at the end when she's so happy, she's just spins and spins and spins. I mean, that's the sort of bliss. That's what you do when you're in the state of ultimate bliss. You just want to spin around. That's exactly what. What a great moment. But my point with that is that it's Hunter that initiates that moment, that first moment of connection between the two of them after so many years. Who knows? Maybe for Hunter, I don't even know if he remembers her directly. He might. I'm not sure. There's another great moment of Hunter, right, where after they watch the Super 8 footage, remember all the way up to them, it's been a little bit frosty between the two of them, right? The scene before, Hunter kind of rejected Travis because Travis came to the school and maybe before he said, let's walk home together, but Hunter said, I don't want to walk home. No one walks home from school. Everyone drives in their cars. And so Hunter essentially rejects Travis, and he gets a little bit berated by his parents for that. But then they watch the Super 8 footage, and then after that, there's a little bit of a bond because not only does Hunter see the footage, but Hunter sees Travis seeing the footage. And I think that is very important into the development of the relationship between Travis and Hunter. Most obviously, of course, it's very important because the immediate after effect of that is that it's time for Hunter to go to bed, and he says, good night, Dad, and he kisses, right? Please correct me if I'm getting my details wrong. I'm working off of memory, but he kisses, he says, good night, Dad, to Walt, and he kisses Walt. And then he goes to Travis, who's sitting alone on the couch. And then he says, he kind of waits for a moment, and he says, good night, Dad, right? I don't think he kisses him, but he says, good night, Dad. But that acknowledgement of him as being Dad is so big, so big. And even more amazing is that according to the commentary, Wim Wenders's commentary, Wim Wenders says that moment was improvised by the actor, Hunter Carson. So that is, if that is true, that this was an act of improvisation on the actor's part, oh boy, wow, what an instinct. What a great actor's instinct that shows. And that's a perfect moment, such a perfect moment. And he doesn't overdo it, right? He doesn't give him like a kind of a saccharine kind of hug, it's played just perfectly. And I love also that's shown also when he's listening to the tape, and and also his love of things like NASA and space. And there's a great thing where they're talking on the walkie-talkies, and he's sitting in the back of the flatbed truck, and he's talking to Harry Dean Stanton, who's driving in the driver's seat through the walkie-talkies, and he kind of fumbles out the words, but the point is that, you know, he's trying to say, right, there was the baby and the father, and if the father traveled at light speed for whatever it is, and then he came back, then the father would be the same age, but the baby would be an old man or something like that. Wow! I know that was meant to be like just a simple little, maybe a little moment of nothing, perhaps. But wow, if that isn't a kind of poetic metaphor for the relationship between Travis and Hunter, I don't know what is. Wow, wow, what a great moment. So yes, so Hunter Carson as Hunter is great, and Natasha Kinski as Jane is so great in this. And also, just speaking of, before I forget, Dean Stockwell, of course. Dean Stockwell is Walt. Walt is, I think, the most difficult character in this film to play, I would say. Not to take anything away from the other actors, that's not my intention here, but I think Walt's character is so, it's like everyone relies on Walt. Everyone depends on Walt. Walt is the one that has to be the steady anchor, if you will. But he's got frustrations. Well, he's like, you know, why won't you tell me anything, Travis? And he's trying to figure out all this stuff, and he's got a lot of pressure. He has to work, and he has to do all this. He's the one who treks out all the way to Texas to pick up his brother, and he tries to figure things out. And he's got, what's so great about him is he has this great, unshakable sense of earnestness. He doesn't lie. He never shows any outward showings of any kind of direct anger. He does have moments of frustration, don't get me wrong, but he's never angry. He never, even when Hunter does that thing of rejecting Travis at the beginning with the walk home, he doesn't raise his voice at him, but he's very calm. And what I love about him, he doesn't mince words. He always says it straight. He says the truth in a straight manner. He doesn't lie to Hunter. He doesn't lie to Travis. He doesn't hesitate when he says, you know, yeah, Hunter is Travis's son. So he knows the importance of truth, and he has this great way about him, and his insistence on being as honest as possible and as earnest as possible. I love that. I really love that. Of course, this is countered occasionally by Travis's own childhood naivete that translates into this lovely sense of even more in-depth honesty. You know, I love that moment between the two brothers who are in the car and they're talking. I think it's maybe they're driving and they're stopped at a train tracks and they're waiting for a train to pass, and then it then cuts to a shot of the two of them and talking about Hunter and the fact that you know, how old is Hunter? Harry Dean asks Dean Stockwell, you know, how old is Hunter? And I love the answer. So Walt says, oh, he's going to be 8 in January, and then Travis, so he's 7. I love that moment. It's so perfect. It's so perfect, right? It's like almost like Harry Dean Stanton is thinking almost of the now, so much so he can't think of anything beyond that. He's just thinking of the now, whereas Dean Stockwell, the Walt character, is thinking not just of the now. He's thinking of the implications, the long-term implications, as it were. You know, he's the one who says, you know, is 4 years a long time? And Walt says, you know, 4 years, I mean, it's half the kid's life, right? So he's the one who gives all the real world implications of Travis and what he has to say. But Travis at the same time is thinking of the now and what he's trying to do, although he does have his own dreams and aspirations, as exemplified by that great picture that he has of Paris, Texas, don't get me wrong. But there is that lovely compare and contrast moment, if you will, between the two brothers. And this is yet another indication of why I think Dean Stockwell's performance is really great, and the character is one that I think is very difficult to play because it has to be the steady anchor compared with these really larger-than-life characters, if you will, in Travis and Jane and Hunter. But he really brings it, and then some, I think. Oh, great performance. So, okay. So, just Mike Pixler, hello. I love the Western music. It really added to the Texas setting. Yes, I agree. Carl, hello. I hope you're doing well, my friend. Let's see. Alec Hansen also mentions the Ry Cooder score. It's unbelievable. Yes. Yes. Let's see. Just scrolling down the comments here. Oh, Fabricio. Hello. Hi, Daisuke. Just finished the film. So much red. Yes, so much red. I think Wim Wenders actually makes a point of that. And actually, I made a point of wearing my red shirt. I don't know if you noticed, but this is on purpose because I wanted to make a link between the red and Paris, Texas, the film. There's a moment where there's a shot, I think, of Anne's face, and there's red. It's bathed in red light, and I think Wim Wenders in the commentary says, you know, when shots are bathed in red light, it looks like they're out of focus. But believe me, the film is in focus at this moment. So, yes, there's so much red in this film. And now there's a discussion of other Wim Wenders works. Excuse me. And let's see. Yes, there's more Wim Wenders works. I would love to talk about more Wim Wenders works on this YouTube channel. You know, there is the Road Trilogy, or the so-called Road Trilogy box set from Criterion. I'd love to talk about that one of these days. Let's see here. Okay. Unity, Duty, and Destiny says, oh yes, referring to the Police Academy. Oh yes, that's just a blue DVD I have. I love Police Academy, but that's for another occasion. I'd love to talk about that in another video one day. Now there is, let's see. Okay. Gosh, let's see. Just scrolling down the comments here. Oh, Cooper Glover, 1972. Hello. I remember my father had Star Wars wallpaper for our family when I was a kid. Yes. I think you're referring to the comment I made about the Return of the Jedi bed sheets, I think. Let's see. Oh gosh. Yes. Sorry, I'm just scrolling down here. Gosh, trying to. Okay. All right. Okay, so Cooper Glover 1972 says, Daisuke, they have a Facebook group that shows famous film locations as they appear in a film and how they appear in everyday reality. I can't remember the name of the group. Maybe you're referring to the, okay, Film Location Tourist? I'm not sure. Okay. The locations of the film. Yes. And this is a discussion of West Hoff, Texas. Okay. Let's see. Just scrolling down the comments here. There is a great discussion here. As always, really wonderful. Okay. And Gray 1951 is here, but I acknowledge that he left already. So if you see this, Mike, I hope you're well. Hello, I hope you're well. Yes, Cine Arts, hello. It's nice to see you. Max, hello. Max says, I love this movie so much because it doesn't drap me to a movie with intense scene, music, or dialogue. It's like an invitation. Let me immerse within the movie and get the feeling and emotion by myself. That's a very interesting, great point. And I think, yeah, and you said the story is rather simple but executed so well. So I think that's a really nice way of putting it. You know, the story does have a certain simplicity, but that does allow for an ease of entry, if you will, a nice way of entering the world, immersion, as you so nicely put it, into its emotional landscape, and I find that really great. And I think, yes, that I think adds further support to my assertion that I think the fact that the film starts with this sort of redemption arc, if you will, and the simple story of a man trying to find his way, I think makes it even more accessible in a certain perspective, at least. Okay, let's see. Right. Okay, I'm skipping through a bunch of comments here, so if I have failed to address you and your comment, please forgive me. It's not my intention, but I'm just trying to get through as many as I can before we wind down here, because we have been speaking for over 2 hours here, and I do want to get to walking my dog very soon. So let's see. Enrolled agent, hello. That's nice to see you, sis. Thank you very much for your nice comment here. I hope to talk to you again very soon. Let's. Oh gosh, I've done this again. I've pushed the button and now I've scrolled all the way to the. Okay, great. Let's see. All right. There's a discussion now about, is Travis a kidnapper or not? I don't think he is. But if anyone has any information to the contrary, please let me know, and I'd be very happy to listen to it. I don't. Yeah. Yeah. I think the discussion is about how his treatment of Hunter, but I think that's yeah. Right. Kidnapping is essentially the person being kidnapped must not want to go with the person, and Hunter obviously wants to go with Travis. The thing that makes it a little bit complicated, of course, is the fact that Hunter is of minor age, and so I'm not sure if this falls within the actual statutory definition of what kidnapping is, but because, and also, right, it could be kidnapping in the sense that who are the legal guardians at this point in time, right? Because Walt thought that Travis was dead, and so Travis might very easily be considered dead by the state. Who knows? So I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It's a good question, I suppose. But at least, let's say, emotionally speaking, I don't think the act that Travis does with Hunter at the second half of the film is akin to kidnapping. But again, it really depends also on one's outlook of Travis as a character. Okay, just scrolling through the comments here. Wow, the chat is just, wow, it's going, you guys are great. You guys are so smart. Look at all these references you're making here. Wow, amazing. I don't want to get into it now. It's just gonna reveal my ignorance in many things. So I'm just gonna, wow, great. You guys are really smart. All right. And there's more discussion of Dean Stockwell, as there should be. Yes. All right. And wow. Okay. And then, okay, I'm skipping over some comments here, so I just want to make sure I get to these before JL, hello. It's nice to see you. Um, um, Mung Queen, hello, it's Mung Queen. Nice to see you. I don't know if we've spoken to before, but if this is our first time, it's nice to meet you. My name is Daisuke. So, yes, the colors green and red have a lot of screen time in Paris, Texas. Yes, that's for sure. Red for sure. Green also. Yes, and very much so. I don't know if there's any specific meaning behind what red means or what green means. If one color means truth or another color means something. I'm not sure if that's the case, but there is something to be said about that. Thomas, hello. Thomas Wilkie says, just joined. Paris, Texas is an awesome movie. But I feel so bad for the uncle and aunt. Yes, because the uncle and aunt loved the kids so much. I agree with you. Yeah, there is. That I agree with you. Let's see. And I would say that the deleted scenes in the Criterion collection include, as I mentioned before, an alternate version of the Walt and Anne arc at the end. Right at the end of in the film, we see them basically resigned to the uncertainty that this is situation with Travis and Hunter has left them with. But in the alternate scenes that is included in the Criterion disc, we see them basically, they're off and trying to find them. And in fact, Wim Wenders recounts a possible ending for the film that could have involved Anne and Walt confronting Jane and Hunter and Travis, here, and all the characters would have assembled. But I think, and so therefore he had these two versions that, with respect to the Walt and Anne character arcs that he was trying to work with. And in the editing room, he decided on the final version, which was basically to have Walt and Anne essentially leave the narrative about 2/3 way into the film, in favor of focusing on Jane, Hunter, and Travis. Is that a weakness of the film? I'm not sure if it is, but it could be. But again, I think the film is about Travis and his redemption arc more than anything else. And I think Walt functions as a kind of steady anchor to that. So he doesn't necessarily, and he himself acknowledges that. Right, Walt, Travis, and Hunter are father and son, and it's almost important for them to try to resolve that family issue. I think it's not in any way, I don't think it's in any way inconsistent with the character of Walt as it's played out up to the course of that film. But his absence is felt, I think, because Gene Selquel's portrayal of Walt is so endearing, that's for sure. But it doesn't, I think, for me anyway, give way to any kind of further weakness in the film, because on the contrary, we get so much stuff in the latter half of the film, do we not? And I think it really makes up for that in many, many ways, in a multitude of ways. Okay, so just winding down here, I think I said everything that I want to say about this. And so I just want to see. I think also, oh yes, going back to the Mung Queen's comments about the colors. Yes, so I just want to be clear here. Yes, so the red is very important also, and it reminded me of that. Right, the shirts that the Travis and Hunter are wearing are right, and as they are in the car trying to go after Jane's car, which is red, and there are two red cars that emerge at the same time, yes. So there's so much to be said about the use of color here, and it's very striking. I think what it does is it certainly adds I mean, it does many things, and I think it does more things than I could possibly hope to encompass in one single comment. But I think if I were to say anything as a means also to just wind down this discussion, is that it does provide a kind of marker, if you will, or kind of highlight to the film that we can direct our attention to. I mean, when we see red, it's strikingly red. When we see green, as you allude to, it's strikingly green, and so it seems to pop off of the screen almost in a way that's almost not unnatural, but maybe supernatural, if you know what I mean. It's something that is beyond the general natural state of things as it's trying to be depicted in the film. So this makes it, this calls attention also to the fact that this film almost, as I was trying to allude to at the very start of this live stream, almost acts as a kind of homage, pastiche, if you will, of all these elements that seem to be representative of a kind of a visual metaphor representation of a kind of Americana or Americanness, and or even more fundamentally, maybe not just within the context of a particular geography or culture, but also within the context of a more intimate portrayal of a family trying to get back together. And so I see all these things, and we've seen this with Wim Wenders in this film. You know, there's some elements that are subdued, then they're in favor of things that are hyper-realized and brought to the fore in a way that calls attention to it, but also further adds to the overall dimension of the grand scheme of the film, I think. And I love this interplay between things that are emphasized and subdued, and then back and forth and back and forth. And this is played throughout the film, not only in terms of visual motifs, colors, of course, notwithstanding, but also in terms of ways in which America is represented, also ways in which characters are represented through the specific choices of the actors and their performances, and also in terms of the the filmmaking style, the innate filmmaking style that is Wim Wenders' filmmaking style, at least at this particular point in his career. So yes, it all comes together quite splendidly, in my opinion. All right, so let's wind down here. So Seofin, hello, it's nice to see you from Finland. It's nice to see you as always. And yes, I hope you are, yes, I hope you are well. And yes, just winding down here. Right, just winding down here as well. Yes. Yes, Monquin, yes, you're right about the red cap as well at the beginning of the film, and a certain a sense of freedom perhaps associated with green. That's a really interesting point as well. Great. And then lots of links with General Portrait of America. I completely agree. I absolutely agree 100% with that. You're absolutely right. So I want to say, just in closing, because I really have to wind down here. It's almost been, what, almost 90 minutes here. So, oh, not 90 minutes, no, 2 hours and 20 minutes. So that's more than 90 minutes. So 140 minutes. So that is the live stream film club discussion of Paris, Texas. So I thank you very much for joining me. It's been a real pleasure, as always, to see you and to hear your thoughts and comments about this film. And so thank you very much for that. It's been a real pleasure. I hope to, how should I put it? I hope to see you again very soon. It's been very illuminating for me. I've learned a lot, as I always do with these film club live streams, because your comments, as always, are so great. It's been really great. So thank you. And to meet, I've been so happy also because I think I've been able to meet a lot of people for the first time here. And so if this is your first time, really wonderful. Thank you so much. It's been really lovely to make your acquaintance, and I hope this is the start of many conversations between you and me. I certainly would love that. It would be really great to talk with you. So if you are so inclined, please feel free to leave further comments of your thoughts and comments in the comment section below of this video, or you can leave comments on the comment sections of other videos. I will do my best to address them as soon as I can. So thank you very much. I do want to say in closing, in case anyone out there is still listening, that I will be, what's the next film called? Oh yes, it's Tokyo Story. So Tokyo Story is right here. So Tokyo Story is going to be next Sunday, the same time, same place. So Sunday, is that right? September 1st. Is it September 1st? Sunday, September 1st, 2019 at 6 a.m. Tokyo time. Is it already September? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Wow. Time flies. Before one knows it, we will be in the throes of 2020. Oh my goodness. That's really fast. So, but anyway, my friends, there is Tokyo Story, which is next Sunday. So please join in the conversation if you like. I will try to talk about this film, but I admit, like Paris, Texas, I'm very intimidated by Tokyo Story. So, but I will certainly do my best. But I'm not sure if my best will be good enough, but I will certainly try. Also, with respect to the film club, I want to say that the I want to say that at the moment I am conducting a poll on the community tab of my YouTube page. So if you go to my YouTube page, you go to the community tab, and you'll be able to see a poll. And the poll is asking viewers to vote for what film they would like to talk about for the live stream, which will be at the very last Sunday of September 2019. And so at the moment there are, let's see, and the poll will be up until September 10th. And by the time we hit September 10th, I will look at the poll results, and whichever film is the one that has the most vote percentage will be the film that we will discuss at the end of September. So at the moment we have the 5 films: Detour at 22%, Faces at 21%, My Darling Clementine at 19%, Pickpocket at 22%. Wow. The Thin Blue Line at 16%. So they're all pretty close, but Detour and Pickpocket are tied for first, with Faces and My Darling Clementine not far behind. And so, wow, this was amazing. So for any of you out there who have yet to vote in the poll, please feel free to vote and let me know what film you want to talk about of these 5. Again, I apologize because these films might not necessarily be the films that you yourself might want to talk about. So I apologize for that if it doesn't cover any of the bases that you are comfortable with. But this has been, it's again very difficult for me to fashion a poll that fits everyone's tastes, and so I've done my very best. And so if you are interested in any of these films, please feel free to vote for them, for the one that you like, and we can go from there. And again, you have until the 10th of September, which is not so far away. So Pickpocket and Detour are tied for first at the moment. Both very great films, each very unique and different in their own way. So it'll be great to talk to you about that. And just to wind down, I'll give it another few minutes here, and then we'll call it a day. So I want to thank you very much, and I think I just want to say hello to my dear friends who have been here at this YouTube channel for some time, even from way back at the very early days, and also to our new friends, those of you who are new here, who have maybe recently subscribed or have come here through other means and have discovered this channel through whatever means. I really appreciate your time, and it's nice to see you and welcome. So to all of you, my friends, it's really nice to know you and to talk with you. And I always do my best to get to your comments. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult, especially on the weekends, because it's always nice to have a day off. So please forgive me if I'm very late to replying to your comment. I also know sometimes people leave comments that tend to disappear for whatever reason. It's certainly not because of anything I do. So I don't ban any comments. I don't block any comments or anything like that. So if you find that you've left a comment but it hasn't showed up or I haven't responded to it, it's chances are maybe I've just accidentally overlooked it. If so, I apologize. Or another possibility is that YouTube just lost it and I am unable to comment on it. And that has actually happened to me rather recently with a number of comments from people I have met for the first time. And so if that's the case for you, I apologize, but please feel free to leave the comment again on another video and just let me know in a little note, you've left this comment before, but I didn't respond. So I will do my best to reply to the best of my ability. So. But I think it's very important to keep the conversations going because I said this before and I'll say it again. I really believe this. This YouTube channel it's very small. It's not. I don't think it's in any way groundbreaking or anything. It's just me talking to my iPhone for 2 hours or so, but it gives me the opportunity to engage with you and to talk with you and to hear your thoughts about films and cinema, this thing that we all love, right? So I think that it's so much so for me, it's a learning experience for me more than anything else, I think, from my point of view. I'm able to learn from you, and you're able to give me inspiration and recommendations, which helps to further my own cinema education. And so I can't ask for anything better than that, my friends. And so you are, in that respect, you are really the lifeblood of this channel. And this channel would be nothing, absolutely nothing, without you. So I want you to know that. I really want you to know that. I really believe that. And so I want to thank you very much for your time, and I want to thank you for your energies and just being who you are, because it really helps me a lot, and it really makes me even more inspired to want to reach out to you and to hear what it is you have to say about cinema and these great movies. So yes, so thank you very much. And with that, my friends, I hope you are well. And again, don't forget to vote in the poll and let me know what it is you want to talk about. So until then, my friends, please be well. And also keep a lookout for future videos here. John Carpenter videos will be coming very, very soon. So just keep a look. I can't guarantee exactly when, but they will be coming very soon. So, and then in the meantime, of course, please watch Tokyo Story from Yasujiro Ozu. So, okay. So with that, that's it. So thank you very much for your time and be well. Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, and we're done. Thank you very much, my friends. So, great. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for putting up with me, especially sorry for being late. I didn't mean to be late, but yeah, so sorry for being late. So thank you very much for your patience, and that's it. So let's see. Also, I will be seeing Once Upon a Time in Hollywood next Friday. I think it's finally opening in Japan next Friday, so that will be a really nice thing to see. So I know people have spoken about that. Some people have really loved it, some people maybe not so much. So it'd be nice to see where I fall along that spectrum. But that's opening in Japan next Friday, or not this coming Friday. So that'll be good to check out. So anyway, my friends, thank you, and yeah, talk to you again very soon. Have a great rest of your day wherever you are. Cheers. Bye-bye. All right. So let's see here. Turn off the dog, and it's time to walk my dog. So